And guys, look, I'd like this to be the most powerful testimony on earth, and I'd like you to listen to it carefully, because I'm sure that you'll give it the greatest support it requires to help every human being on earth right now. I went through a very strange event in 2012. They call it the 212 phenomenon. And if you go into details about the 212 phenomenon, they say it has something to do with a Mayan calendar and with the ancestry tools. Now, it's very hard to explain this, right? Especially when people don't really know what they're really talking about. But imagine the whole world has amnesia, because we do. We're trapped with amnesia, and you discover this the hard way, the hardest way known to man, because I want you to listen to me carefully. I never went to church, I never read the Bible, and I was never that way inclined in any way, shape, or form. I myself went through a special process in life, and I wasn't aware of this myself. But I was put on a certain journey, right, doing the things that I did, were the results I came out with for a reason. And I didn't know myself. I realized I wasn't really in control of my own vessel. I went through a process and a transformation for 3.5 years when I was declared dead in 2012 for 23 minutes. I went through a strange transformation that's so beyond the mind that is so hard to explain, but I'd like you to listen to me. I woke up 36 hours later in Ipswich Hospital, paralyzed from my neck down. They told me I'd never walk again. But I got up and walked out in 45 minutes and limped on my right-hand leg for 3.5 years. For 3.5 years, I limped on my right-hand leg. My right-hand leg becomes the confirmation 3.5 years later. When I got up and walked out, they said I was paralyzed, would never walk again. And then we thought it was a misdiagnosis. And obviously I believe that too, because I was fighting against it and got up and walked out. My son walked in after 45 minutes and I moved every limb in my body except for my right-hand leg. I wasn't finished. Then I put my arm in his shoulder and walked out of the hospital. I limped on my leg for 3.5 years. And 3.5 years later, I'm in in Perth Hospital. Okay, I've gone through some studies for nearly 8 months at Perth Hospital. And after 8 months, I was called in for a special meeting, a very special meeting. A meeting that blew my mind away so far, I couldn't even believe it myself. What I was being told was the most unbelievable thing that you could not wrap your mind around, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe, because I certainly couldn't wrap my mind around this, right? Just think for a moment, okay? Just listen to me carefully. I went to jail for 10 years, okay? And we went into the biggest mental health research and DNA studies done to find the cure of the human condition to save humanity. Every human being on earth is controlled by stress and fear and die prematurely from it. No matter what they say, no matter where they come from. 98.7% is anti-clockwise in their aura and their DNA, and their body cells get corruption and collusion in the daytime from stress-related diseases, and they die prematurely, getting younger all the time. The human conditioning controls humanity in 98.7% in DNA and biological genes, with evidence done, right? In our voltage reliability in our DNA. Only 1.3% is clockwise and can repair 24 hours a day without mental disorders and defects. They went into the biggest study ever conducted in global history to try and find the cure of the human conditioning. At that time, it was beyond the point of return. And I'd like you to listen to what I'm saying to you. It was virtually beyond the point of return. And it was the most important thing in the whole world is our DNA, right? And what's happened to fauna and animals around the earth? okay, with frequencies changing and shaman changing, and our EMP pulse in our biological genes, and what we believe in with placebo effect, okay, and which clockwise it goes, anti-clockwise or clockwise, because it's in our aura and our DNA and our sixth sense. We're going into six magic things and stripping the sixth sense for the sixth time, affecting animals, fauna, collapsing between 38 and 90% nutrition value, and also bothering the biological fields on animals going around circles and birds falling out of the sky and fish going around circles in the ocean. It's all magnetic fields, EMP pulses, affecting fauna, nature, and everything in our biological systems, everything in our own DNA, with our own biofields and our own biosensors. And when people are in their mind, in a personality, okay, they're trapped in their mind, in their personality, and not spirituality with their sixth sense, okay? So just think about this for a moment, because there's something they found, right, in 2008 in my DNA. They found I could preserve DNA and repair, right, with genetic memory, and I could cure the human condition that's going to save humanity. And they first found that out in 2008 in the biggest DNA study done when I was in prison. And I was oblivious to this at the same time. I was oblivious to the facts of what they were doing, right, and what they found. I was told by psychiatrists, oh, it's astonishing because I had bipolar and I cured it. And I didn't think much of it at the time because I was suffering a lot of stress myself and going through a lot of adverse effects with corruption in jail. And I made a lot of videos about this, but I just didn't take it on board at the time. I really didn't. When I came out of jail after 10 years in prison, in a time where time sets life preserves, where natural selection takes place, where it's proven after 7 years or more, you preserve DNA. You go back to natural selection, the same as Series 7, clockwise. You go to school, become anti-clockwise, and you bowl in your DNA. Okay? You become mentally institutionalized and suffer the humiliation throughout your life. When you go to jail for 7 years or more, you go back in your natural environment, the same as 0 to 7, in a natural selection and natural order of life. I'll explain a lot of things about this. DNA preserves after 7 years in jail. DNA preserves with a self-preservation mode, with a sacred secretion to conduct with, to think instinctively and think outside the mind. As I say in the documentary, The Matrix, those who think instinctively, we tune out of the program. The most instinctive human beings ever found on Earth is the Aboriginals, right? The Aboriginals in the outback of Australia, and people in villages, right, off and away from Western civilization, like Shilla mastermind monks and Buddhists. And people in prison after 7 years are in the same environment, a concrete jungle, and live by the same quantum mechanics where natural selection takes place. So from 0 to 7, right, you're clockwise, and then from 7 to 14 you go anti-clockwise, and you go in a death spiral and die prematurely from stress-related diseases in our mind, trapped inside our mind throughout our life. Okay, can only 7 to 15% of our brain. We now know how to use 100% of our brain, not 10 to 15, but 100. When you're clockwise, you have mental telepathy, ESP, remote you, and telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. You have all the tools coded in your own DNA with genetic memory that unlocks. So after 7 years in jail, you start to begin a process of unlocking genetic memory, and it comes to you out of the blue, right, instinctively, like you see in the movie Limitless. I developed a drug called Manna in every testing centre across Australia in the biggest report, right, in the Star Chamber Inquiry, okay, the Gatekeeper Report. Well, we put people back in the primal state with the natural selection of a natural order. So my DNA becomes the forefront leader in 2008 in the biggest study ever done to find the cure of the human condition, and I already found it before I came to jail because I was curing people, right, with a drug. A methamphetamine made from a plant called mayim, that called bread manna in the Bible, that Christ and Moses used, that activates a tree of life, that gives you all your genetic process with multiple perceptions, with dimensional thinking. And through the drug itself, we learn how to do this, okay, on the streets. And it's one of the most powerful confirmations on earth that we don't need to get into too much, because the fact is, we learn how to do it naturally when I breathe in program to recreate the sacred secretion, the holy breath of life, by restoring our oxygen level and going back in a primal state with natural selection. We do it in a 40-day crossover, which I go into details about every day on videos every single day. With the book Freedom by Jim Mickey, by 16,000 top scholars in the world, the holy way of life. And when I breathe in the holy breath of life, we bring people back in the primal state with the natural selection and natural order in life to do every single thing that Christ can evolve in your DNA with genetic memory and your ancestry genetic tools coded in your own DNA. So going through this process activates your primordial state by going back in your innocence as a childhood and back in your selflessness and crossing back over in your primordial state with the quantum mechanics of a relationship, which is known as the tools of righteousness for a reason, because it works and nothing else in the world does. Trust me, I'm the most powerful confirmation that knows this, what divine power is of healing when you can heal yourself. So I heal the human conditioning from bipolar with the most powerful confirmation on earth in 2008. I had a major heart attack with 3 stents fitted, told to take 5 medications and stop smoking immediately. 4 years later in 2012, I'm clinically dead for 23 minutes. I'm paralyzed from my neck down till I never walk in, get up and walk out. 3.5 years later in a study done, I'm sitting down with top bowlers in the whole world and 2 top people from the top think tank in the world in a 34-year study done with me and 16 years of DNA studies from 2001 to 2015, 15 years. In DNA studies from the day I come to prison in the biggest study done and through the adverse effect of 7-year transformation in prison in 2008 with the most powerful confirmation. Then in 2012, I die for 23 minutes and go through a massive transformation for 3.5 years. I can't even begin to explain in a way you really understand, but with genetic memory, things come back. And things come to me out of the blue in a way I cannot explain in any way, except for you have to go through this yourself to experience this yourself. And you do need to go through this yourself. It's thinking outside the mind where all your genetic memory comes back and all your genetic process. And I had to revise my perception about every single thing I come to learn about life up until that moment. Revise my perception about everything. And the funny thing is, I stamped an Indian number at the age of 24 in 1984 in such a way the X-ray machine 4 years later could not detect it. So I was put in a mastermind report with RSVP, Research Succeeded Perfection. 1992, Kirsten Ashley, right, flat lines with a drug overdose enough to kill 50 people. In 1992, she's taken to Ipswich Hospital after being narcaned and brought back to life, fighting for her life in emergency with 7 doctors and nurses on CCTV. She flatlines a second time, given 0% chance of living, but they work on her frantically trying to save her life anyway and did whatever they could. She flatlines a second time and then her body lifts 8 inches off the bed from one end to the other. Okay, they fly backwards, but she comes back to life in the most powerful miracle ever seen on CCTV and 7 most powerful peer reports ever in history. This doesn't happen once or twice, it happens 3 times. She lives to tell the story, given 0% chance of living, right? Died and flatlined 4 times. And 3 times like this with CCTV and 7 peer reports. They sit down and tell me, Kim, that was your ex-wife. We interviewed her. She wrote the most powerful poem in 2003. The one and only went worldwide #1 for 8 months. It's powerful, Kim. We interviewed her. Kim, she said you were the one with the divine power to give her life back and bring her back to life. That was her words. She wrote the poem, #1 worldwide for 8 months, the one and only. And Kim, on every study done, you're the only one of a kind like this. Kim, we want to tell you that you have repaired your arteries and grow brand new arteries around your stents. And you haven't taken the medication and you didn't stop smoking, Kim. You haven't changed a thing. Yet divine intervention is taking place in your DNA and altered your DNA, and you've cured your heart disease and grown brand new arteries. And your arteries are better today than what they were in 2008. And we can't make heads or tails of this. But Kim, in the Neuralink test, we know that your leg, right? We know about amnesia and we know about miracles, and we've been studying this, the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity. Kim, it was your DNA we found in 2008 that cured bipolar, and we first found the cure of the human condition in your DNA. In these studies done, Kim, look at you now. in the genetic memory and process from 2008 to 2016, we can tell you and confirm now, Kim, you were paralyzed from your neck down. You got up and walked up yourself. But when your son walked in, you stopped the process of whatever you did. Whatever you were doing, go back to that moment. When you were fighting against this, you had the power, divine power, to command nature in such a way you got up and walked out yourself. So go back to that moment, Kim. You can fix your leg yourself because you've been living in your leg ever since. And we can tell in your DNA and in your biological genes with your Neuralink that it is, in fact, from a stroke. And you had a stroke. You were dead for 23 minutes. You were paralyzed from neck down. And your leg's a confirmation, Kim, that you were paralyzed from neck down. And what you say is true. But it was not a misdiagnosed because your leg's still dormant, Kim. And for that reason, you have to go back to that moment and did what you did, right? Because you can fix your leg yourself, Kim. We have so much confirmation about you, and we know that divine intervention takes place with you. Even on the mastermind reports and the gatekeeper report, you've done things so far beyond the mind like no one else. Kim, you're on 17 current affairs shows as a mastermind loopholes, the laws of manipulation, and you unravel living. You became the most wanted in the star category. But you were the one on every report that had godlike power on every single document. When you also designed laboratory glass that took a 40-year process down to 3.5 that no scientist ever thought of, you also created the most powerful enlightenment drug, Kim, that brought people back in the Pomona state in every testing centre across Australia, that caused the Royal Commission paying out for 23 years, and the Stolen Declaration of Polity paying out today, and the biggest mental health research ever conducted in global history, and DNA studies done from your drug, Kim, on testing centres across Australia. Your product on every testing centre went into people across the whole country in prison. And we found out in 2001, when you first come to jail, when the study first began, in the last 7 years, or those 7 years, you were the one that designed the drug that brought people back in the Pomona state to use 100% of their mind, 100% of their brain, in the biggest study ever done, Kim. We know it's your drug, manna, bread manna, the Christ and most used, that you developed with the most authentic details and the most powerful enlightenment drug, the most powerful love drug, and most powerful truth serum ever developed in history. And Kim, we know that you'll put people back in the Pomona state with these tools in the biggest study ever done. We found that out in jail in the biggest DNA study and through all the adverse effects of what? Programming, right? Through all the cognitive programs to address their offending behavior, right? To take responsibility for their action with their moral guilt and shame and understanding the domino effect they have upon family members, friends, themselves and their victims. And it all came out from the same drugs, the same thing, the same adverse effects that changed their DNA as well at the same time, no matter what's going on. No matter what they did, we discovered something, right? With these people on every testing centre come into jail, right? What they come to prison for, and the same drug on every testing centre that you developed that brought people back in the Pomona state in the biggest, most powerful confirmation on earth, Kim. The drug brought people back in the Pomona state, the most powerful truth serum and love drug, because the highest dead time and bonds and mesominds went down in 30 years, Kim. When you brought this drug out, from 1996 to 2000, it went to the lowest level in 30 years, and you made people work together and stop violence, drug deaths, gang killing, and domestic violence to the lowest level in 30 years, Kim. You plummeted the work in every police station. Your arresting officer commends you and retires the police force. So did many others, Kim, and caused all these adverse effects because you did something never seen before in life, Kim. You did, Kim. And then in 2004, in a Supreme Court examination, it was proven the governments and authorities were corrupted. Kim, we know that you gave away 90% of your money, 72 million. Kim, we know on every single thing with deportation, you have more than 240 letters, support letters, character test letters, and your character test is outstanding compared to anybody else we've ever seen in your ministry, because you make people work together like a father who takes everyone under the wing and stop every single bit of violence, domestic violence, gang killing, drug deaths, and everybody's mental disorders and D&D effects at the same time to the lowest level in 30 years that we've ever seen. And it got our attention, Kim, because it had an adverse effect for every hospital, mental peer reports, and the whole lot to the lowest level in 30 years on every level. We've never seen nothing like it in life, Kim. We know you're responsible single-handedly for all these adverse effects, and you caused the Extinction Rebellion to go against the sixth mass extinction, stripping the sixth sense for the sixth time, with the most powerful confirmation on earth, the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity. And it's your DNA, your primordial being number one, with the most powerful confirmation on earth. You brought someone back to life with peer reports and CCTV, and it's confirmed. You were the one, Kim, the one and only, and we can confirm that on the biggest study ever done. Kim, you can fix. Kim, you can fix your own leg. Get up. You can do it yourself. You've done it before, but your mind doesn't know. Your mind doesn't know. Go back to those moments where you can, right, where you were the one that also commanded the nature, commanded the divine power to command nature. You're the one that could do that, bring your wife back to life and do the things that you've done. You've been dead 3 times, Kim, clinically, and beat every one of them. You've resurrected before. You can do things no one else can do, Kim. And you've taught others to do it as well. We know that. We know you've taught many others that they can do what Christ can as well in their own DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process with their ancestry tools in their own DNA. We know that. But you're the one and the only one. You can fix your leg yourself, Kim. You can do it. You can fix your leg yourself. You just don't believe in it yourself. You never had that kind of faith. Nor did any of us, Kim. But we do now. We have more faith in you than anyone. You led us to this path. The cure of every single thing in your study is the most powerful confirmation on earth, Kim. That's given us more faith than anyone. We found the last man being born on earth that can do what Christ can and more, and it's all through you, Kim, right, in this genetic process and what you brought to society. Imagine you're in those shoes, man, and you're being told something like this. Then you stand up, right? Then you stand up right in front of them and you go right back to that moment, and then you repair your leg in a heartbeat like that. After limping for 3.5 years, you go back to that moment when you got up in 2012, you revise your perception and go right back out of your mind and work against it, stand up and walk perfectly straight on your leg after limping for 3.5 years. And that becomes the confirmation you never had before in your life that you can do it yourself, deliberately, not confused about it. But it's an outside influence that I never knew nothing about. And your mind doesn't even know when these events take place. But you go for a transformation to learn how to command nature and how to faith in yourself, that you can do it yourself. And that's a process I went through. And that's why I know things from waking up from amnesia and going through a massive transformation in such a way, it's so far beyond the mind does not understand. The mind's the problem. You see, I learned that like this. The mind's the problem, right? And when you get out of your mind and you use your primordial state and you have real faith in what you can do, you can fix your leg yourself. And I did it right there in front of these people, and it becomes the most powerful confirmation, not only for me, but for them as well at the same time. Right there in that event, it's a confirmation I can do it myself. And they watched it with their own eyes, right there in that event. Now, I'm telling you, we don't have faith because we don't think outside the mind. We don't have faith in ourselves, and that's reality. We do not have faith in ourselves that we can do this, but yet God gave us a God-given gift to do it because I'm solid evidence, right? And now I know. And once you know, you know. You never get it wrong again, right? You never get it wrong again. You can never go back in your mind. You can never get controlled by personality or mentality in your mind ever again. You're free, and the liberation is sensational, and it's so far beyond the mind. Once you realize you can do this, and you cross over for a 40-day test with We're Not Breathing and the book Freedom, believe me, once you cross over and you know, it's a whole different thing than thinking or believing that you know. The confirmation is phenomenal. And I give you a confirmation in a 40-day fasting. I give you that evidence every day. Believe me, those that go through this and push the wind of breathing and push the sixth sense with the Holy Breath of Life and listen to the book Freedom, they find out and have the most powerful confirmation and the most powerful divine intervention. And when they do, they know and go through a transformation with natural selection and natural order in life and your own DNA with genetic memory. And it'll come to you out of the blue. The picture that tells you 1,000 words are going to lie to you. Everything else in the world can. And you discover that. How much you've been lied to. And how much you lie to yourself. And how much you're trapped into yourself in your mind. And do not know what you do until you go through this. And when you go through this in the crossover, it's the greatest resurrection. It's a rebirth. It's crossing over a new dimension with sevenfold wisdom knowledge. With sevenfold wisdom and knowledge to live with the tree of life. And believe me, it is beyond the mind. And the greatest time to be alive. And believe me, you don't want to miss out on this one. Right? It is the most divine power, the most divine intervention, high as a kite. So high that people can't stand it and do not know what they're missing out on. But it is the most unbelievable glory of love pouring all over the top of you with a relationship, a codependent relationship. And believe me, when you get into yourself, in your selflessness, back in your innocent, and you cross over, God damn it, I'm telling you, I never read the Bible. I never went to church, but I know what most people don't know, and I know what they're missing out on because the mind does not know what you're doing. And Christ was right because I got put through this for a reason. So I can teach the resurrection humanity and cross them over in their moral state so they can do what Christ can and more because believe me, I am rock solid evidence and the most powerful confirmation on earth. I can teach others to do it as well. So you can have faith in that and go through a process for 40 days fasting and follow my instructions with Bring Up Breathing program to recreate the second squeeze of the Holy Breath of Life and the book Freedom. They'll take you through every rabbit hole so you get your head through the light at the end of the tunnel to stick your head out of the cave. And then you'll have a confirmation and you'll feel the truth and you will never get deceived ever again because you cross over. And that's when you're saved and you'll never go back in your personality. You'll never go back in your mentality because you're free. And you'll discover that for the first time and go through a transformation that's nothing short of a miracle. The greatest time to be alive. Do not fuck yourself in the bum. Trust me, everybody is. This is freedom. This is the liberation you've only been dreaming about.